This talk is going to be about Symfony2 and AngularJS. It's not the first time I'm having this presentation. First time I had this on AngularJS user group, but the feedback was overwhelming and questions kept flowing over Twitter, over other social channels. The Q&A session was bigger than the talk itself last time, so I had to add a couple sections to this talk, and I tried to cover most integration problems in this talk. So, my name is Armen. I'm working for SymfonyLive Germany. Mostly I'm busy with Symfony2. I started looking into AngularJS my hobby projects, but community kept asking for AngularJS in bigger projects, so AngularJS made its way into enterprise. So I had to dump this into my daily routine and make this one of my main working tools as well. I'm a web developer since many years, decades probably. Recently had to do a bit of DevOps as well, provisioning, background deployment. That's enough about me. So why AngularJS? Yes?
Just a little bit louder, please.
Louder? Okay, I'll try. So, why AngularJS? AngularJS was there, nobody noticed it, came silently into our lives, but all of a sudden started noticing mentions on Twitter like AngularJS is the best thing that happened in JavaScript since now? We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Hello?
It's just from quantum physics, whatever I touch breaks. AngularJS made its way into the community pretty fast, and I keep hearing quotes like AngularJS is best thing since sliced bread, and it's replacing jQuery. In fact, who has struggled with structuring JavaScript in their bigger projects? Exactly. Who likes throwing kilobytes of codes away? Exactly. That's exactly the answer why AngularJS. A bit technical, what made it attractive to me as a technician, it's bidirectional data binding. Have you ever wrote an input field where you had to basically react to some change event? Like you're typing and something changes, auto-suggestion or something like this. If you use cross-browser way, then you'll probably notice that Internet Explorer triggers the change event when you focus on. So you had to maintain this. Even you had this polyfills with jQuery, it wasn't still enough to kind of synchronize your view and your data, your view and your model. You had to manually write code to do this. Subscribe to some events, trigger these events, and that was kilobytes of code that was written, and then kilobytes of code to maintain cross-browser compatibility. That's one thing. Second thing is deploying reusable components. It's like widgets on your website that you can reuse out of their context, probably reuse here, reuse there, like shopping cart repeats itself over the pages. That's what directives are. They allow you to define and encapsulate a structure and then reuse it over the pages. Directives were so attractive that they grew into standalone technology that Google announced last year. It's utilizing the shadow DOM technology. polymers, I think. Yeah, polymers. So directives are going their own way. I'm not sure if they'll be part of Angular 2. That's coming in a few years, but that was a powerful tool of AngularJS. Also, most of you who have to do with, who have to work with Symfony, work with dependency injection. And this is really powerful tool because it enables you to write loosely coupled services that communicate to each other and get instantiated and injected through dependency injection. AngularJS has that too in JavaScript. That's rather impressive. One doesn't have it in jQuery, for example. It's, in terms of frameworks, if you compare jQuery to AngularJS, it's a full stack framework. It has its own templating, its own event system, its own dependency injection, and jQuery has part of DOM manipulation, a bit of events, no templating, so it's, but they complement each other. You can use jQuery alongside with AngularJS. I'll do that in one part of this presentation, just to take some shortcuts, but you can replace jQuery completely out of your project. You can push it away, and if you want to do everything purely object-oriented way, Angular allows this. And since you have lots of services that are rather decoupled from each other, first time you are enabled to write tests, real unit tests and integration tests, apply them into framework, group them in test suite, automate them on, make them run on deployments. That's rather impressive for front-end. Why Symfony2? Who uses Symfony2? Exactly. So, you know why, right? So, the plan for this talk is we're going to get rid of static, because if you're planning to work with AngularJS, just merging files together won't do the trick. Besides, there are a couple more issues that I'll talk about. Then I'm going to introduce relatively new tools in JavaScript. It's Wargulp and Browserify. They work pretty well together, and they will change the way you work with front-end. Then we're going to solve some template issues that pop up first when you try to integrate AngularJS and Symfony. And routing, forms, and translations. Those are topics that we're going to talk about. So, why ascetic, or most importantly, why not ascetic? Ascetic is an asset management framework. It's pretty good when you have only two files and you have to glue them together, put into a web accessible directory, and that's it. It was inspired by WebAssets Python library, and it comes with 30+ built-in filters that encode files, compress them, do some modifications, different manipulations. But why don't we use it? Every time you hit refresh, if you're working in development environment, this happens on each request. And the more assets you have, the longer it takes. So just compressing them together, writing into another directory can take a couple seconds at least. And when you develop front-end, you refresh your browser rather often, like 100 times a day, and that sums up into, I don't know, hours of productive work that you can waste on writing code, not on gluing assets together in the background. So again, if you just have a couple front-end files, ascetic will do the trick, but it's not going to be sufficient for us because we'll have dozens of files to work with AngularJS. So removing ascetic is not a rocket science. It's just removing another bundle, like you would remove any other bundle from Symfony. It's removing the composer entry, removing all the occurrences in the pub kernel, and then all the relevant sections from the configuration, running composer update. That's it, no side of static anymore. Even though it's in a standard Symfony standard shipment, it's getting rid of it is a matter of seconds. Power. I'm stepping into this Gulp browser file Power stack. Power is a package manager for JavaScript. Who uses Power? Exactly. It's really amazing in front-end world. You go to lunch, there's no Power. You come back, there is Power. And all the GitHub repositories got Power.js. And you can use it right away for the production. It's front-end development is like PHP world. It's more agile and reacting faster on this kind of events. But PHP is going this direction too. So Power is the front-end analog, JavaScript analog of Composer. And you fetch your dependencies. It's a package manager. It comes with a console tool, and it became industry standard very quickly. So installing is not a brainer. It's not a brainer. Npm install Power, you get it global on your machine. Then you need the Power.rc file to specify the folder where the libraries are going to land. There's a big debate where to place this inside Symfony, inside bundle directory under resources or somewhere central. And my answer is usually that the vendor libraries that you're downloading, like jQuery, like AngularJS, they don't have to do anything with your bundles. So they are going to be reused. You have portal bundle, you have admin bundle, you're going to reuse the same AngularJS, and putting this into some bundle doesn't make any sense, so just put it into some central place. I like to put it in vendors_js just to have a visual grouped with the vendor directory from PHP. Then you need Power.json just like Composer.json in the root of your project, and then you trigger Power install, and it just installs all the dependencies. As you see, the format is similar to Composer. You specify library, you specify dependencies, development versions, or you can be stricter, you can allow more freedom in the versioning, and then you execute Power install, and you don't have to pick up your libraries anymore. You don't have to go to jQuery.com, click on download button, choose the appropriate version, then think, okay, which version is now compatible with jQuery UI library? The Power does it for me. Gulp. Who's using Gulp? Okay. Who's using Grunt? Okay, it's usually 50-50. I'd like to say that the difference between Gulp and Grunt is like difference between Beavis and Butthead, but it's not. I used Grunt for a while, and I stepped into the same problem as with static. You change something, and then you wait. And the more files you have, the more you wait. So it can end up in 20-30 seconds till Grunt goes through the process, compiles the files together, and gives you output, so you can refresh. And during development, this can get frustrating because you change the asset, you do the Alt-Tab Control-R, this instinct that you developed for years, just I changed, I check. And then you see the old result. You go back, you debug, but the fact is that Grunt was running in the background, and it didn't manage to do its job before you refreshed. So we need speed. We need speed here. You hit refresh, it should instantaneously be ready to debug. So let's go. So we need speed. Gulp already gained 700 registered plugins. It's based on Node.js. It's based on Node.js streams. So the difference to Grunt here is Grunt, each step, when you execute Grunt flow, each step will save files on the file system. Next step will pick up those files and do operations to them. And as we all know, file system operations are expensive in terms of time. So Gulp does this through streams. It's a big pipe. It pipes all the output through itself and only dumps the end result. So I'll show later. It's never touching the file system. At the beginning, it takes what it needs to do, and at the end, you get the result done. And when you compare, when you put side to side similar scripts, difference is really visual. You get all your changes within a second, if not less. It's really impressive in terms of performance. And for those who are going to miss some functionality from Grunt, there are even adapter plugins that allow you to hook Grunt plugins into Gulp and execute it that way. And it's native JavaScript syntax, so you can write custom decision-making process there. If you get yourself familiar with Node.js events, writing a plugin is also a matter of minutes. That's why there are so many of them. It's really simple, you get control over it, no DSL, no just a few kilobytes, you're done. So this is how a typical Gulp file looks like. This script, a couple lines of code. What this does is it compresses less, it compiles less files, then compresses them, in case of error gives the console output, and puts the asset into a destination folder. Then it registers the listener to a specific folder, to a specific wildcard, and when something changes in this folder, it triggers a specific task like style sheets here. And then the default task is the entry point for the whole Gulp. So when you write Gulp, it executes the default task. And then the process is triggered, and every time you modify a less file, you hit Ctrl less, it's available for you within a second. We use Browserify. That's not that popular yet. We use this required.js. Okay, it's Browserify is relatively fresh. To understand why it's so powerful, let's talk about JavaScript models. So there are many ways how you can define a model in JavaScript. The first one is global variables. We all know why it's bad. We all know what can go wrong. You just change a global variable somewhere else and world crashes. You don't know where, you don't know why, it just crashes. There's no way you can test it, and it's very, very hard to debug. Then there is this IMD pattern that looks a bit ugly to me, to my taste. That's what required.js is using to get its problem solved. So you basically have to wrap your code into this structure to get the full benefit of model, to encapsulate and to inject it as a requirement to another module. There is also this common.js pattern that I personally like. It exists in the backend development, so it's for Node.js. It's Node.js syntax. It's rather clean. You require when you need it. You export it in one place, and it's a bit visually nicer. And there is this ECMAScript 6 concept, model definition. Looks better, looks promising. Unfortunately, doesn't exist yet. It's not in the wild. You cannot adapt it. And then, of course, yeah, somebody smart comes and say, hey, why don't we take it together and make one model definition to rule them all, and then you have this. Yeah. You don't want to pack each and every class you write into this, right? So it works for Node.js and for browsers. You don't. So that's when browserify comes into play. It does the following trick. You define it using CommonJS standard. You require it when you need, you use it this way, and then you generate it in the background. What it does, it takes your requirement tree, resolves it as dependency, and then generates this thing in the background, basically. But you don't have to deal with it because it's happening in the background. And we already have gulp or grunt that triggers this task for us. So all we need to do is just specify the requirements this way and then compile it. So CommonJS syntax for a browser. That's powerful. What you can also do with browserify is you can pick any JavaScript module that's defined on NPM that doesn't have to do with file system, that will work in a browser context in terms of sandbox. And using browserify, you can convert it for your usage. You can require and use it. That's very powerful. There are hundreds of models written for Node.js, for example, these streams, event libraries, very powerful tools that weren't available for browser world. All of the sudden, this conversion are available for us in the browser. That's impressive. So we'll take advantage of this as well. Here is an example how we can automate the browserify task in Gulp. We just need another plugin for Gulp, and yeah, that triggers that comment for us. Main.js will resolve all the requirements, concatenate them into bundle.js, and it will be available for us under web.js folder. This is how it works with AngularJS. As you see, we require the service in the factory, and we export this. This allows us to use this pattern when each class, each module lives in its own file. You can split the JavaScript code into these small files, and you know in the hierarchy where they are. That allows us to cleanly structure our JavaScript for the first time in decades, to have 30, 40 files, each file containing its own class, living in its own file, very testable, very obvious where everything relies, and you require everything from this app.js, and you include in your markup only this app.js. You don't have to, by adding each new file into your file system, you don't have to go to your markup and say script source equals. That was frustrating, right? You just include this app.js, you get dependencies resolved through browserify, you concatenate together. All you need to do is just create a new file, put it into the right place, hit Ctrl+S, we're done. So, questions so far? Good. Next, we're going to start talking about integration of AngularJS and Symfony. First thing that you'll notice is this problem. When you start working with Symfony and AngularJS, the first thing you get is a twig error, object or property not defined. It's because you placed an AngularJS template and twig got it first, tried to interpret, didn't understand it, and spit out the error. Solution is relatively easy. One way you can change the interpolation tokens on the AngularJS side. Other way, you can surround the variables that you don't want interpolated, like AngularJS templates, into a verbatim tag of tweak. I personally prefer to use the first solution because you do it one time, then in the templates you use the square brackets and you're done. Using verbatim tag is you have to remember in each template that's going to be used by tweak and do it in place every single time. That's visually more code if you repeat it over and over again. It's just makes your templates full of this verbatim tag that you basically don't need for tweak logic. So I prefer the first solution. Generation. So who had troubles generating routes in AngularJS, JavaScript? So remember this concatenating paths together, replacing strings like I want ID to be here, so slash plus ID plus slash plus something. That's not really maintainable. And AngularJS works a lot with backend. You have to communicate the backend somehow, so you have to generate some routes. And Symfony route definition looks the following way. You specify a route name, then you have two possibilities. You either use app.dev.php or you don't. And then you have the variables inside the URL, like virtual directories, then you get optional get parameters, query parameters. Generating this string in JavaScript is rather challenging. So it has to do with string replaces. Do you use the development version or do you use production version? Is your cache clean for the production environment or not? That's quite a big challenge, in fact. So what would solve our problem is something that looks what routes are available in Symfony, which routes do you want to expose, compile them into JavaScript, and give this JavaScript file to us. In fact, the problem is was already existing a long time ago, before AngularJS, obviously, and the problem got solved by JS routing bundle, FSJS routing bundle. It exposes routes by whitelisting, so for each route you have to say, I'm exposing this. So you don't have to expose admin panel routes. It generates the JSON for you, so whichever routes you expose, at the end you get a compiled JSON array, and there is a command that you can trigger that will dump these routes into a JSON file that's living inside your JavaScript folder that you're just concatenating to all your other JavaScript, and you have the routes available. So there are three ways how you can expose routes in FSJS route bundle. One is through YAML, annotations, and the config. Pretty much like every single Symfony configuration, you can do it in these three ways. I personally would recommend to use the config for this. We'll see in a moment. Just a small modification. You take this FSJS routing section and put it into a separate file, into, let's say, route expose YAML, and you include this file from the main configuration. So we want this file dedicated to the exposed routes, and it contains nothing else, only your exposed routes, listed in a YAML way. And next, we will tell Gal to execute this command that's going to dump these routes for us every time this route's exposed YAML changes. So what we're doing here is we're adding a route in the routes exposed YAML, we're hitting save, Gal triggers this command, and you get your routes exported into ArmJS file, like on this example. It contains your routes compiled, you're ready to use them in the code. it happens the following way. FSJS router comes with this routing library. You just write routing generate route name, then you give the parameters, and it compiles the path for you. This is still not an Angular way because this is a global service. When we're testing, we cannot mock it. So I'd like to wrap it into an AngularJS service. And it's rather easy. You define a service like you would define any other service in AngularJS, and the service only wraps around this library. So it takes name parameters and is absolute, and gives exactly the same way to the routing library. And this is how you use it. You just need to inject the URL service, and in your HTTP request you generate it by providing route name and then parameters as JSON. Then Symfony, this FSJS routing bundle will take care in which order, in which placeholders does the parameter land. Is it a virtual directory? Is it an optional get parameter? It's quite powerful, and it comes at low cost of integration, and at the end your JavaScript doesn't know which path will be generated from this. So you can change, you still can change a route in one place in your route definitions in Symfony, and it's going to be transparently, knowledge will be transparently get passed to JavaScript. You still have one point of change, that's good. So, forms. Forms are fun, right? Who thinks forms are fun? Exactly, you live in Germany, right? So, this is how you define form. Form type. You specify your fields, you give them types, some customization. They get compiled into form. This is how you handle the form in the controller. It's a boilerplate code, it's documented, it's part of Symfony. Pretty much everybody did that, right? This is how you render the form. Very easy, very transparent, unless you need to customize it, but then you split it into parts, you do your trick, but still. This is what gets rendered. Some output skipped, but I left two important parts: an element, a normal input element, and the token. Very important, never forget the token. Anyway, you need to do it, yeah, security. We all have to do very ridiculous stuff for security reasons, and don't read your packages. That's the only changes that you need to do to make your form Angular friendly. That's not much. You need to trigger submit event whenever form is submitted. You need to hook your input field into an Angular model, and you have to provide values for the hidden elements. That's not much. So I'm populating all the values of the form into a data variable that's available for us in the controller. And whenever I hit submit, I'll get submitted. I'll trigger the submit method of the controller. So we can do this very easy in the form things. So in the form start element, we just need to provide this method to every time you trigger a form start, this will be injected into your form element, and every time you render a widget, you'll get this injected into your markup as well. So just you model for your regular inputs, the ones that you can change, and ng init for the elements you cannot change. Those are hidden elements, so it doesn't make sense to apply model there. And the only difference that you need to make is to use the form theme. And now you render the form like you have used to, but now it's AngularJS aware. This is how you include your form in the markup. It's when you trigger ng-include, that's going to fetch the form URL from the controller, and it's going to fetch this URL from the backend. So in the backend, you're just rendering the form this way, and this will get delivered by form URL to you. And this is how the controller looks like. So we're using the freshly defined URL service to generate a route for us. We're populating the data inside the data attribute, and then we're registering the submit function. Submit on its turn sends the AJAX request with appropriate header. Yesterday, who took part on the REST talk by Lucas, heard that there is a listener in FOS REST panel, right? FOS REST panel. There is a listener that does this automatically for you. If you're not using this bundle, you're providing this header, and AngularJS will send the forms, will submit the form with the right headers, like it's a normal form submit. It will emulate a normal form submit. And when the response comes back, the HTML will get injected into its place. With all the rendered errors, with all the rendered validation errors, this will just pop the output from the backend into its place. You will not notice a difference. The only part I don't like about this code is the response part. It's not. It's happening jQuery way here, just for simplicity's sake. It's rather challenging in AngularJS to inject HTML correctly. So it calculates all the tokens, so it doesn't raise any security questions. That would be clear to go the Angular synthesization way. It's just boilerplate code that doesn't make sense for the example. This works this way, but take some time and see how you can inject the code in Angular the Angular way. So, internal synchronization and localization. It's fun. Pure fun. We all know there are some problems with it. And Apple takes its own approach to localization. They don't localize anything, they just change the currency sign. Localization done. So there are two ways you can do the localization. If you're fancy, you can go the get text way. Who's using get text stack in their everyday life on the backend? Not much. It's a rather old school tool for localization, designed for localization. It compiles translation files into binary format. It's really powerful if you have many context-related translations with placeholders, with fancy stuff. Nobody needs it. So we'll go a simpler way. There is Angular translate, and there is Angular get text. If you need really complicated stuff, you use the get text. It solves the problem, duplicates. But Angular translate is simpler, clearer, well documented. It's awesome. It's done by Pascal Prey. He's living in Hanover. Some guy. So it provides fallback language support. Very important. We use it in Symfony. Who does translations in Symfony? Who has to localize? Right. We have fallback languages there. We have default languages, and if the translation is not provided, we fall back to some translation. This library has JSON format support. By the way, in Symfony, since 2.4, we have JSON support as well. That's going to win us a lot of conversion time. I mean, it's not that challenging to convert a JSON file. We can convert something into a JSON file. Please leave Berlin. So writing JSON format is trivial. And this library comes with custom loaders, so you can specify the logic of retrieving translations for yourself. You can retrieve them from a database, you can trigger a backend request, you can ask for a specific file. It provides loader cache, so one time you loaded the translations, you don't need to do it again. So it's in your browser cache, you can just use it. And this library is really, really customized. So this is how the configuration normally looks like. Translate provider specifies the preferred language, the language that it uses, and the fallback language. In case translations are not provided, pick up the other language. So for example, you can say preferred language is German, but in case no translation, pick up the English ones. Using loader cache means basically once you loaded the file, keep it for yourself, don't attempt loading it again. And use static files loader means that it will pick up, depending on the language, a specific file. So in this example, if we specified en, it will go to /translation locale en JSON, and this will going to load this file, and it's gonna use these translations for en that you provided from the backend. So this is how the JSON looks like. Translation JSON, pretty simple, pretty trivial, key value, basically nothing sophisticated. And we just need to use Symfony to generate these translations for us. Gulf will watch this folder, will watch the translation folder. In case something changes, it will just copy the files into the web folder, where the Angular library will pick them up and use. So you have translation definition in one place, you use it for the backend, and you use it for the front end. And last thing, a bit complicated, you have to tell from the backend which language do we need to use. So for example, user specified a language in his settings, so we have to use this language for this concrete user. We need to tell frontend somehow that it's going to use. So we need to define a custom storage for language. This could be, this storage is just a service in the AngularJS. It could be something that gets something from the backend. Firing an AJAX request, loading locale. In this case, I'll define a simple storage that is reading from window app settings variable. So I'm rendering the app settings from the backend in the markup, and I'm just getting the value from there. So rendering it inline into HTML. This is simplistic. Most realistically, you need to do an AJAX request to retrieve your language or some other strategy. You can use cookies for this, you can use local storage for this. It's up to you. It's up to how do you define the get and set methods in this custom storage method, the retrieval strategy. And this is how you get translations also transparently generated by Symfony, used by AngularJS. One place for change, and used everywhere. So you can use this Symfony helper comments for translator component to help in the translation, generate translations, and then using them transparently in AngularJS. Questions? Thanks a lot, and you can find the slides uploaded by this year.
Thank you. Yeah, I know.
Break. What very interesting.